Good morning, friends. Welcome to the fourth weekly lecture of our program Samachar Manthan. First issue which we'll deal with is the jobless growth in India because Prime Minister has said that there's no lack or there is no shortage of jobs. We have shortage of data. Uh, Enlightenment in business standard, there has been number of critique of that statement because they say that there's not just shortage of data, there's also shortage of jobs. So my idea is to give you a basic on why do we have this jobless growth thing. I mean, it's not just that this government faced the problem. We have been facing this problem since 1991. I mean, it's not like that UP had a very good track record in creating jobs, or the NDA one had a very great job, or it a great record, or the previous Narasimha Rao government had a great record. I mean, everybody struggled in creating jobs, and that has lot to do with the kind of policies we went for after independence. So idea of this thing is to give you a basic of how or why we are facing this problem, why no government has not been able to solve this problem. So the first reason why we have jobless growth problem is because of India's focus on higher education. See, let's understand this thing very clearly. In any country, it is the manufacturing sector which creates job. It is the manufacturing sector which creates mass scale jobs. The services cannot create a lot of jobs. That is one thing which you should keep in mind. Now, what we did wrong was that we focused on higher education and we neglected basic education. The Southeast Asian countries, the East Asian tigers, China, South Korea, Thailand, all of them, what they did was that they focused on basic education and they focused on skilling the population. So they provided everybody with basic skills, right? In India, on the other hand, we focused on creating IITs and IIMs and AIMS, but we neglected the basic education or the mass scale education. So what happened was that when there was liberalization, when liberalization was done, it integrated India's economy to the rest of the world. And because we had a decent amount of highly educated people, the service sector grew in India. And within that service sector, it is two sectors which our growth is led by two sectors. One is IT, second is telecom, and third is financial services. And why did these sectors got a boom of 91? Because we had a decent pool of highly educated engineers and doctors and scientists and all. That is why these sectors boomed after we adopted liberalization. But all of these three sectors are not job intensive sectors. They don't create jobs. Recent data shows that IT sector just creates 2 million jobs, which is nothing for a country like India. On the other hand, for a manufacturing jobs, you need a bunch of people with basic education and with some skills, some vocational skills. We did not have that, and since we did not have that, the manufacturing sector, or at least the labor intensive manufacturing sector, failed in India after 91. See, let's understand this with another example. In China, since has a basic education, and they are provided with skills, so nobody starves. Even a guy can make some toy or make an idol of Ganesha, and he can be a small entrepreneur. Everybody can have a job, right? Because they have been provided with right skills. In India, on the other hand, we are people who are, who have BAs and MAs, but they don't have any skills. So they don't get any jobs. And the sectors which are leading India's growth story have been sectors which do not create jobs, right? So that is why any government comes, it is the same problem, because it is even in last 4 years, our growth is led by the services sector. Even in the services sector, the growth is led by those three sectors which don't create jobs. So first reason why we face jobless growth is because of the wrong policies or the wrong focus we kind of followed since our independence. Second reason why we have jobless growth is thanks to the labor laws. So when you talk of labor laws, as you know that labor laws was strengthened by Indira Gandhi, number of draconian acts like Industrial Disputes Act, Factories Act, and all these, where if you want to, if you are, an organization with some people, and if you want to fire the people, you cannot fire them without taking the permission of the government. It makes hiring and firing very difficult. Plus, you have to provide them in all the kind of facilities. It made labor expensive in India. And if you talk of international trade, India is a labor intensive country, right? So labor should be cheap in India. According to economic theory, labor should be cheap in India. But because of this labor laws, because of this rigid labor laws, it has made hiring and firing difficult, plus it has made labor expensive in India. And that is why the capitalists or the industrialists, they responded it by following a capital intensive production. So even though India has excess of labor, but to avoid these labor laws, to avoid these rigid labor laws, the Indian capitalists, they went for the capital intensive mode of production. And that is why the labor intensive MSME sector could not develop in India, because the capitalists believe that thanks to labor laws, it's very difficult for me to hire and fire them. It's difficult to pay them so high salary. So let's use more capital and let's use less labor. And that is why we fail to create enough jobs. Third reason why we failed to create enough jobs was slow infrastructure development. So infrastructure, as you know, is known for creating lot, because it has a lot of forward and backward linkages. So it is known to create a lot of jobs. But because the infrastructure development in India was slow, it also failed to create enough jobs. Fourth reason why, or the other reasons why there was jobless growth in India, is because we had this reservation policy in India. I'm not talking about the job reservation. I'm talking about the, there is a reservation policy in small and medium enterprises, that number of industries, small and medium industries, only people with limited capital, only they can run those industries. So therefore, it prohibited or it prevented investment of people who had large capital, who could have made a big thing. They were prohibited from entering these products, and that is why the companies which worked in these products, they were inefficient because they were of small scale, and being small scale, they faced adverse economies of scale, and because of adverse economies of scale, they could not compete with the rest of the world. And that is why we have a situation where Ganesha idols are imported from China. I mean, a country with 80% Hindus have not been able to create Ganesha idols, and it's being imported from a country where there is hardly any Hinduism, right? So the third reason was the reservation policy. Fourth reason was that the tax policy, the subsidies, the incentives which the government provided to the industries, they were linked to only the amount invested. They were not linked to the job created. So government used to give them subsidies, or it used to give tax benefits. So government used to say, okay, if you invest 100 crores, we'll give you the tax benefit of this. If you invest 100 crores in Jharkhand, we will give you some subsidy. But that was all linked to the amount they invested. What the government should have done was that government should have told them that if you would have created 5,000 jobs, we would give you tax benefits. If you would have created 10,000 jobs, we would give you some subsidies. So it should have been that. Fourth reason or fifth reason why we did not have was again lack of skills. And the last reason was there was no focused policy. There was no focused policy on uh, MSME sector. And the last reason why we did not or we failed to create enough job was because of inverted duty structure. Now, what is this? We will explain. So, in case of India, we have our trade policy really sucks, to be really honest, because what we do is that the raw material required for producing good. So our industries require a lot of raw materials from abroad. The raw material is taxed heavily, which means that the custom duty which that importer has to pay is very high, right? And the finished good which we import from outside, the custom duty we pay is very very low. So what happens is that because of expensive raw materials which we abroad from or which we import from abroad, our manufacturing industry or our manufacturers, they lose the competitive ability because their product will become expensive. Since the raw material which is imported from outside is it's taxed heavily, the custom duty he has to pay is very high. It means it will increase the cost of its production, and since its cost of production will increase, it will lose its competitive ability to the rest of the world. The products of rest of the world will become cheaper to that person because they don't have to face this inverted duty structure, and that is why it prohibits or it prevents the growth of Indian manufacturers. And since we know that it is the manufacturing sector which can create mass jobs, that is the reason we don't create or we have this phenomena of jobless growth in India. While the finished good, the duty they have to pay for import of finished good is very low, which means these imports displace our local goods. It again prohibits them from growing, because suppose a good is imported from USA, or let's take the example of China. If Ganesh idol or if the Chinese light is allowed in India without paying any duty, then surely it will displace the Indian Diwali light because it is cheaper. And the problem is that suppose if there is some raw material, some metal or mineral which is required for manufacturing light, that is imported at a very high duty, which means if Indian manufacturer wants to import raw material for its production, he will have to pay a very high amount of custom duty, and that will make his goods expensive. And since it will make his goods expensive, he will not be able to compete with Chinese made light. And since he will not be able to compete with Chinese made light, he will not grow. And since he will not grow, he will not create enough jobs. If you have any doubt on any of the points, you can always ping me up. I am always ready to respond to. And if the doubt is very, very big, you can call me between 9 to 10 in the evening. Because there are some doubts which cannot be typed on, Telegram. Next, come to the important question: how can we reverse the phenomenon of jobless growth? See, this is also linked to your main topic. If you there's the in GS paper 3 is this topic called employment. This is linked to that. So first of all, Niti Aayog action agenda, which it published few weeks back, it recommended three things which India should follow. So it said that India should first of all, which is very very necessary, is reform labor laws, which means there should be some flexibility which should be given in hiring and firing. Second is it identified some labor intensive sectors like apparel, electronics, food processing, gems and jewelries, financial services, tourism, where the government should focus because all of them are job intensive sectors. So second thing is it recommended was to focus on job intensive sectors. And third thing it recommended was that we should, focus on creating coastal economic zones, just like China's special economic zone, because coastal economic zone will create opportunities for a lot of jobs in the coastal areas. This is what the Niti Aayog recommended. Let's take some more steps, some more things which we should do. Fourth thing we should do is that we should reverse or we should change our trade policy. And what should we do? Well, we should, remove the inverted duty structure that we have right now, which I have just explained. The raw material should be allowed to enter India without paying zero custom duty, and in case of finished good, we should have we should impose some custom duty to give protection to our local manufacturers. We did that in automobile. In automobile sector, there was no inverted duty, and that is the reason why our automobile sector, showed such boost after liberalization. Before liberalization, we had just what we had Ambassador and we had Maruti. After 91, we have so many cars, so many Mahindras, you have Tatas, these kind of companies who are coming, and they have been able to face competition from the foreign manufacturers like Ford, Mitsubishi, and Honda and all. So we should change our trade policy. Fifth thing we should do is that we should focus on cluster development. So, see, what do we mean by cluster development? It means that suppose there are leather industries, right? Usually, we have different reasons, and in reasons these industries are concentration. So what government should do is that government should create special parks. Like we have special parks for IT, we should have special parks for labor intensive activities like leather, like cotton, etc., like gems. So how will this benefit? This will benefit because in cluster there will be common infrastructure. So there will be common sewage system, there will be common treatment system, because see, most of the industries in this sector, they are small scale industries. They don't have enough money to build proper sewage system or proper affluent treatment system. They don't have enough money, right? Plus they don't have enough money for doing or for spending on marketing. They don't have enough money to spend on R&D. So when there will be cluster which will be developed, all of these small companies can pool up their resources, and by pooling up their resources they can create common sewage system, they can create common affluent treatment system, they can create common marketing, network. So all these things can reduce the cost of these industries. And secondly, many of these leather industry, they have been closed because they don't have proper affluent treatment system. Since they don't have proper affluent treatment system, they are closed by the Supreme Court order or by the NGT order. So we therefore need to promote these cluster development in labor intensive sectors. Next, we should focus is on aligning urban development with manufacturing clusters. So in you know cities where we have Amrit and smart cities, we should have proper alignment, or Ministry of Urban Development and the Ministry of MSME should have proper alignment that infrastructure is developed in those areas where there are MSME industries. Next, we should focus on public investment in health, education, police, and judiciary. All of these four sectors, they have a lot of potential to create new jobs. Plus, it will benefit India's workforce. It will make India's workforce more efficient, and when they will have proper skills, they are more likely to get good jobs. So we should increase, because there are so many posts which are vacant in police, in judiciary, in education too. There's so much vacancy of high school teachers or primary school teachers. If we increase the if we create more government schools, or we create more public hospitals, it will create more jobs. So this ends this topic, which is the jobless growth in India.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update from Civil's Daily.